Let's watch a few clips of Mehdi Hasan on Democracy Now! As he lights up Trump and MAGA for their hypocrisy and lies in the way that truly only he can. So I've got the best moments ready for us, and we can jump back in after with the needed context.
He's open about the fact that he wants to use the power of the state to crush Donald Trump's opponents. He's a sycophant. He's a bag carrier. He literally wrote a children's book about King Donald Trump. That's how sycophantic he is. And I would say to some of the progressives maybe watching your show this morning, Amy Goodman, who say, well, you know what? The FBI does need reform. We on the left don't like the FBI. We think Kash Patel should go break it up. Well, look, you could not like the FBI for good reason. But the only reason Kash Patel and the Republicans don't like the FBI is because the FBI investigated Donald Trump over ties to Russia, and because the FBI went to Mar-a-Lago and searched his home for stolen classified documents, which he was keeping against the law in his home. So they don't actually care about reform or bureaucracy or deep state. They care about neutering all institutions that can stand up to Donald Trump and MAGA.
This is perfectly put because there is genuine left critique of the FBI and the need to reform it and parts of it, right? But Trump and his cronies definitely aren't going to do that. They're trying to prey on that to be able to get away with the things that they want to get away with, right? They aren't going to address systemic racism or racial biases in the targeting of the FBI. As Mehdi said, this is just part of their larger battle from Trump against institutions in America that stand to prevent him from doing what is essentially fascism, where now he can use this inherent mistrust that he's built up of these institutions that he's created largely, right, to justify destroying them. That way, anyone whose credibility isn't damaged enough, he can just crush. So now the FBI can't and won't investigate him for his actions. If the media reports on his actions, he successfully has convinced his base to consider it fake news no matter the evidence. Like, he's successfully done it, right? At this point, he will always control the narrative for his base, as they will question any institution, any report compared to his word, and they will trust his word inevitably. So he can just get away with and justify anything he does. And this is also with Supreme Court immunity backing him as well.
He's even had endorsement, I think you mentioned it in the intro, of QAnon. In one of the books he wrote, he actually hand wrote a QAnon mantra into the book, and they just posted it on social media. By the way, the FBI regards QAnon as a domestic terror threat. Think about the irony, Amy, of putting a person in charge of the FBI who's actually fine with this group that the FBI thinks is a domestic terror threat. So he is at the core of all these conspiracies. When he says he's going after people, you ask me who he's talking about. Of course, he's talking about the Bidens and Clintons of this world, but actually it's much more dangerous than that. It's much broader than that. It's anyone who they think is an opponent. I mean, let's just be this is what authoritarianism looks like. I know it's become fashionable since the election, even on parts of the left, to say, well, it was all exaggerated to say that Trump is a fascist threat to the Constitution or an authoritarian threat to the media. No, it's not exaggerated. These people are saying it out loud, and Trump is appointing them or trying to appoint them to the most senior positions in the United States government and national security apparatus.
He is exactly correct here, and this is also precisely what was in Project 2025, if I might add, where he's installing these diehard loyalists into these positions where now none of them become part of the checks and balances, rather just another cog in the machine of the executive, where Trump has more king-like power now as it becomes concentrated more and more under him, as none of these people will question him or anything he says. Now, he also won't be investigated by the FBI, where it's who cares that he tried to steal an election and use fraudulent electors and all of this, or that he hid classified documents and then had secret conversations with Putin, right? None of his cronies will be investigated either. The richest man in the world who has his thumb on the funding for agencies that do worker and consumer protections, he'll face no scrutiny if he decides to always happen to rule in favor of the owner. Who cares? He's not going to get investigated. Trump is, and it's astonishing because he's doing this in front of our face, but he's setting up to do what is clearly authoritarianism, and the right is loving it, despite saying that they hate authoritarianism and the establishment and that it's the left. but they're loving it when Trump does it because it's, owning the libs and the libs are angry. And now there's not anyone who's going to stop him because he's also successfully bullied elected Republicans into fearing losing their seat if they so much as speak out against him. So they're definitely not going to vote against him or his appointment. So he's going to get to build out this cabinet that'll essentially allow him to do authoritarianism for the next 4 years.
This is the Trump administration. These are the people he's appointing. And I think it's interesting, by the way, the Islamophobia is very worrying on Hex's part, because there was this strain of thinking, even on some parts of the left, that, well, Trump won't be as militaristic and belligerent as the Democrats. Not true. He's putting in a guy at Defense Department who has crusader tattoos on his body, who said outrageous things about killing Muslims, supported the Iraq war. He's going to be in charge of the Pentagon. There's no way this is going to be a quote unquote anti-war presidency if Hex is at the Pentagon and Marco Rubio's at the State Department. By the way, can you imagine, Amy, if Biden or Obama had a nominee who had been accused of screaming drunkenly, kill all Jews, it'd be the end of the world. But of course, with Muslims, no one cares. So this will be a minor story in the resume of Peter Hegseth. One last point very quickly is Hegseth's mother is attacking him. Elon Musk's daughter is attacking him. Bill Barr is attacking Kash Patel. Donald Trump was called Adolf Hitler by J.D. Vance. When people say, oh, liberals are deranged about Trump people, it's always other Republicans who are actually leading the charge and reminding us how awful these people are.
It's always been funny to me, and something I've pushed back on, when MAGA has tried to take this high ground, like Trump is anti-war and he'll be anti-war. Like the right will still try and say that Biden and the left are the warmongers and that MAGA is for peace, as if first off, we've forgotten which party is the party that lied to get us into Iraq and Afghanistan for 20 years. But then they'll say that Biden is a warmonger because of foreign aid and foreign spending, which has no relation to military spending or military action, might I add. Meanwhile, Trump objectively took 3 times the military action and military spending, and they'll be like, aha, but no wars. Like Trump dropped the largest bomb in Afghanistan history, like not in just history of like any bomb, but the largest bomb in the history of Afghanistan. He dropped the largest one on Afghanistan. He did more drone strikes in 4 years than Obama did in 8. It's like double what Joe Biden has done also, by the way. He personally directly vetoed pulling out of helping Saudi when they were doing a genocide in Yemen. He wanted to invade Venezuela. He attacked Iran without reason, got troops killed for this in a retaliatory attack. Meanwhile, Biden got us out of Afghanistan, almost single-handedly ended the drone wars, had periods of no soldiers in active combat zones, but somehow we're supposed to believe that he's the warmonger. Like the cope that MAGA still has to go through is funny to see, to try and pretend that they still have this high ground now that Trump has came in and appointed pro-Iraq Pete Hegseth to the Secretary of Defense, Warhawk Marco Rubio, Mike Huckabee, and Mike Waltz, who supported invading Iraq, wanted to reinvade Afghanistan and invade Iran. Like, it's kind of hilarious, the delusion that MAGA has to accept at this point to still be doing the talking points. Like, the jig is up, but they're still just like, he's going to be anti-war. Like, he appointed all of these pro-war, Warhawk, pro-Iraq, like, wanted to reinvade Afghanistan. He appointed all of these people to teach them a lesson. Like, who knows, right? Like, it's just like, what are we going to do? Like the thought that he was actually anti-war, like Trump won the election and now he's laughing at all the clowns who actually thought he was anti-war and not part of the establishment, as his entire defense team is pro-Iraq warhawks, and he has the richest man on the planet overseeing consumer regulation and worker protections. That's the establishment if I've ever seen it. I mean, I'm sure this administration will really be worker forward though, guys. Like, you look forward to it.